Right, so welcome once again to my living room. This is Mod of the Week. So this week we're talking about head porting and larger valves. Larger valves aren't really something that you can get on every bike, but it is an option for the KLX, mainly because it uses the same engine as the KLX 300R. A company called Kibblewhite, which is a company that makes valves. They make a set of intake valves which are about 1 millimeter larger. Now your intake valves on this side, your exhaust valves on this side. Typically motorcycle engines for the past 20 or 30 years have had 2 sets of each valve, just to improve efficiency, because these circles, they have very little circumference compared to their size. The bigger you get, the less ratio of circumference to actual space they occupy. So it's better to have multiple valves rather than larger single valves. Some engines, very high performance ones, will have 5 valves instead of just these 4, even though it's a very small engine. With 350, you could put 5 into this engine, but this was originally 250, so they make valves out of 2 different metals. They usually make them out of steel. Steel is the most common because it's cheap, it's strong, it works. It won't break on you. When it fails, it deforms rather than shattering. Unlike titanium, which makes a very solid crystalline structure, has a lot of cleavage points. It'll shatter on you. So there's a disadvantage to titanium with anything. I don't trust it. For me, I prefer steel. It is weaker, it won't be able to put up against as much damage, but when it fails, it doesn't fail as bad. It doesn't destroy your engine. However, you can get more performance out of titanium valves because they won't build up gunk on them, because titanium is a more noble type of metal. It's less reactive with its environment than steel. So it won't react with its environment, it won't get gunk on it, and then it will always make a tight seal, but they're expensive, there's trust issue there, you have to use different springs because they have different density. Since this engine was originally designed for 300, this company Kibblewhite figured out a way to put in 1 millimeter larger intake valves. Now, you actually do notice that the intake valves are larger than the exhaust valves. And there's a reason for this. It actually seems kind of counterintuitive. The engine detonates and performs its cycle. You'd think that the air would be taking up more space and it would want to get out there faster. But for one thing, it's easier to actually push air out of a system than to pull it in, because air is kind of like a rubber band. It's easier to crumple it up and then throw it rather than trying to like pull it. The other part of it is that the gas will actually the exhaust will actually kind of naturally escape on its own. It'll just due to its heat and pressure, it'll just push itself out of the engine. So the important thing is getting the air into the engine, not getting out. Now with anything that actually increases flow into your engine, you actually can have problems with fuel consumption. The bigger engine that you get, the bigger intakes, you will start to lose fuel efficiency. And the reason why is because the air velocity won't be as high, it won't hold the gas that it takes from the carburetor as well. However, it reduces the amount of energy that your engine has to expend moving stuff around, and that's the reason why it's beneficial. For example, Bill Blue reports that going from a 34mm carburetor to a 36mm carburetor reduced his optimal gas mileage by about 15 miles per gallon. When you put on a larger valve, you actually have to have a machined valve seat. This is possible to do on your own. I wouldn't recommend it. I didn't do it, of course, but it essentially means taking a rotary tool and drilling out the outside so that then the valve sits perfectly. One of the other things you can do modestly with the valves is you can actually get heavier springs to try to make it so that you can run at a higher RPM and the valves will close better, or lighter weight springs so that then it's actually easier for the valves to pop open. That's a bit above me in terms of engineering. So anyways, the other thing I want to talk about, just got this thing back after 3 weeks of it being out, but the thing that I actually set this out for was to do porting. All engines kind of have head cylinders have these natural flaws in them, and it's cheaper for companies to just kind of get it close with their molding and then let the errors happen and not necessarily deal with them. It's very expensive to do porting because you have to do flow dynamics on it, which is where they blow air or water or something through here, and then they assess where the friction points are, and they try to reduce that as much as possible. A lot of these modifications are just reducing the amount of energy wasted in running your engine, so that then you can use more and more of it. In some cases, it's not necessarily about cutting out stuff, cutting away things, but actually about adding. And they actually added a bit of weld that I can see right around where the valve stems pop out. I'm trying to get it close up, I'm not sure if it's that visible. But that's the exhaust. Here's the intake. Actually, if I feel in there, it's very sharp. Now, one thing I can tell is that it's actually pretty rough in here. It's not perfectly smooth. And the reason why is because if it were perfectly smooth, then like polished, like these valves are, then fuel would have a chance to collect on there. For whatever reason, you get less drag from something that is sort of has a rough surface. You get less air drag than you would with something that's smooth. It's the same logic with a golf ball. The golf ball has dimples on it because that reduces the amount of drag because it doesn't make the air form a perfect waveform. You want a little bit of imperfection to your system. I go and feel here, they actually cut back the separation between the two valves very far to make it almost as though the air is moving into one chamber. Thanks for watching. This has been Mod of the Week.